Good afternoon. This is Bill from Be Rich Fishing. This episode is just to show you a little fun trip that we had out to the Ross Barnett Reservoir Spillway and walked down the Pearl River. In this clip right here, we're just showing you walking down from the spillway, walking down the river channel on the sand. The river is an extremely low level. Right here is this pesky little creek. I don't know if it's a creek or drainage from one of the local neighborhoods, but it doesn't smell very good anyway. So we made it across, and just noticed that most of the people that were here were catching very small catfish. I would assume most are fishing for catfish, considering their lines are out in the water sitting out there. And there was several branches and trees that had fallen in the water from the recent floods, and they were so big they went out into the river, and there were some very, very deep holes around those trees, so we had to go off through the woods. And this whole time I'm basically just looking for poison ivy and snakes. And one of the neat features coming up, it's kind of hard to see because the video is accelerated, is the river had undercut some of these trees, and you could see through the tree roots into the river. So I went back down after a ways, and you can't tell whether some of this is mud or sand, but it was pretty well packed. Most of it was sand, and it was very stained from all the tannins and all the mud and so forth. And right here, those little yellow twist ties, I found those at Hobby Lobby, and we're able to strap my two rods together. I have two fly rods. One was a larger fly rod, 9-weight, with a big bass popper on it. And the one I'm using now is a Cabela's 9-foot, 6-weight with 5 forward weight floating. And I've got a small fly that I made previously, and it was, okay, it's kind of ugly. And you can see I slowed the video down. This is the main catch that we had. The river was so shallow that I knew I had to go around all the big logs and cover and try to get some of the brim and so forth. This portion of the video right here is the catch, and it looks like it is a long-ear sunfish, and it's very, very bright colored. It's got the really, really pretty blues and a really, really orange belly, and it's got the telltale long ear on the side, and you can see it here. I'm going to show a quick picture of it. Beautiful, beautiful fish, and you can see the ugly fly. And ugly fly was a weighted fly, had a little copper head on it with just some chenille, purple chenille, and some little white legs. So I try to take the hook out, and he gets away from me. And then I have to pull him back up, and here we go again. Kind of getting him back in, we get the hook out, and then we proceed. And we keep fishing for the day. Don't catch anything else. But you'll see here in a second, we did have some very, very good adventures. It kind of brought me back to my childhood where we used to go walking in creeks and ponds and so forth. But you can see here where, we're sped up at about 800%. And so we're just fishing these areas, and all this is flats. There's a few holes, and the holes aren't very deep right here. And I didn't want to try to walk across the river, but I saw there were spots where I could. Most of these flats were only about knee deep, and just kind of, just fun to go through, and you could see old mussel shells and everything else. Now, the hard part is in this part of the video, there were so many lines, strings, weights with lines attached, corks, all kinds of trash that were tied up on all kinds of stumps, trees, and everything else. And so I kept getting hung up on those, and this was my first fly that I tied, and I'm not about to lose it. So as long as the water wasn't, up to my waist, I was going to go out and get it. And so I kept on trying to fish and kept getting hung up, and you can see, just there's all kinds of logs and debris, but those were kind of fun. And I never really saw any snakes, gators, or anything like that, but did see some really, really weird law enforcement actions back at the dock. I'll explain that later, but you can see here we're kind of fishing out in the main river. I know there's some laydowns in there as well, and just don't seem to be getting any bites. And so as I was fishing, I would pick up lead weights, I would pick up hooks, recovered a few jigs and so forth, and just kept them in my, I guess you'd say, backpack or my sling, to try to at least make the place a little better. And you can see here we're steadily trying to get unhung, untwisted, untangled, everything else. We had a really hard time with that today. And again, we're just continuing to cast and fish, and just had a good time. I was out in the river. You could see, down in the water. It's pretty easy to see. And I even changed flies to a mayfly pattern at one point. Didn't get any bites, but it was just so shallow it was really, really hard to work with. We'll, at this point, I think this is where we started heading back and just kind of was walking through the river and so forth. All right, right here, I think I start trying to make my way back up the river very slowly. And I'm trying to fish a few logs I can see under the water. But the sun's starting to go down, and didn't want to try to take too long to get out because it is kind of a hike out, and not sure who all's there and anything like that. So I want to make it out before the sun goes down. And that log that you see there really had my attention for some reason. Never did catch anything, but here we're starting to go back, and as you can tell, there's a lot of branches and so forth, and right here I have to go back up the incline, and it is very tricky. So trying to avoid a lot of poison ivy and trying to take some awkward steps, so kind of had to take my time with that. And going through the woods right here brought back a lot of memories. Me and Tommy Johnson and all the other cousins down the road, we would go off into the creeks and the ponds and then through the woods. And the wildlife here is kind of sparse in a way, which is good because there's just like bamboo and so forth and all. But had a lot of fun today, and really, really tried to just get out and fish, have fun, and enjoy it more than anything. But right here is where it started getting kind of anger. It really made me angry because, a few years ago, the Reservoir Police and all the, whatever the organization is, started trying to make it a permit to be able to operate at the spillway, and didn't really understand why, but they said it was for trash. And it's well over $100 ticket if you don't get this permit, and it's free, and all you have to do is fill it out. But it was supposed to encourage people to throw the trash away. And on the way back up this walk, there were people that just did not throw their stuff away. It was diapers and just trash, food, bags, pants, underwear, you name it, it was there. And it just was absolutely disgusting. And it really kind of made me just angry in that I wanted to just, go grab a garbage bag and start picking up. But that really won't do anything to help the situation as far as getting others to clean up, but it would help try to clean up. So what I'll do is probably make another trip down at some point to try to pick up the trash that I can and just at least do my part. And I tried to pull out all the hooks and the weights and so forth from the river that I saw. And that was just for pure safety of, fishermen stepping on it and little kids that are in the river and so forth. But as you can see, it is just trash, trash, trash. It's probably better than what it was in a few years ago, but still, people need to clean their freaking mess up. It is absolutely disgusting and ridiculous. So if you can, be a good conservationist and clean your mess up and throw your trash away. Take it out. Y'all have a good night, good evening.